The champagne flute trembled in my grip, tiny ripples distorting the golden bubbles as I stood frozen against the marble pillar. The ballroom of the Rothmore Hotel stretched before me like a gilded cage, crystal chandeliers dripping light onto silk gowns and tailored tuxedos, the murmur of wealth and power creating a soundtrack I'd never belonged to. I was invisible here, just another server in a crisp white shirt and black bow tie, holding a tray of drinks I could never afford to taste. The air smelled of expensive perfume and older money, with undertones of orchids from the elaborate centerpieces. My feet ached in the cheap heels I'd bought at a discount store, 2 sizes too small because they were all I could afford after paying this month's rent on my studio apartment. 3 years of working catering jobs, and I still felt like an imposter every time I stepped into these glittering worlds. "Emma, table 7 needs refills," Susan hissed as she breezed past, her tray perfectly balanced. She'd been doing this for a decade and moved through the crowd like she belonged. I nodded, weaving between clusters of guests, keeping my eyes down, staying invisible. That was the trick. Be present but unseen, useful but forgettable. I was halfway across the ballroom when I saw him. Marcus stood near the bar, his hand possessively wrapped around a redhead's waist, his laugh carrying over the classical music. My ex-boyfriend, the man who'd drained my savings account, stolen my grandmother's ring, and disappeared 6 months ago, leaving me with nothing but debt and a restraining order that apparently meant nothing. Ice flooded my veins, the tray wobbled. His eyes found mine across the room, and his smile sharpened into something predatory. He whispered something to the redhead, his gaze never leaving me. She laughed, touching his chest in a gesture so familiar it made my stomach turn. He'd looked at me that way once, before I'd discovered he was married, before I'd learned about the other women, before everything shattered. He started moving toward me. Panic seized my throat. The restraining order. I had a restraining order. But who would believe me here, in this palace of privilege, dressed as staff while he wore a designer suit that probably cost more than my annual rent? My fingers went numb around the tray. I turned sharply, desperate to disappear into the service hallway, and collided with something solid. The tray flew from my hands, champagne flutes spinning through the air in a horrible ballet of crystal and liquid. Time stretched as I watched them arc toward the floor, and toward the man I just crashed into. Except they didn't hit the floor. A hand shot out with impossible speed, catching 2 glasses mid-flight. Another person, a massive man in a black suit with an earpiece, caught 2 more. The rest shattered against the marble in an explosion of crystal and champagne that seemed to echo through the entire ballroom. Silence fell like a guillotine blade. I looked up and up, into the coldest eyes I'd ever seen. The man I'd collided with stood perfectly still, his black suit immaculate except for the champagne now soaking his left shoulder and lapel. His features were carved from marble. Sharp jaw, aristocratic nose, dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on ancient coins. But it was his eyes that paralyzed me. Gray as winter storms, assessing me with the kind of focus that suggested he saw everything, missed nothing, forgot even less. He was surrounded by men in black suits, all of them frozen, hands moving toward their jackets in a synchronized movement that made my blood run cold. The massive man who'd caught the glasses stood closest, his expression promising violence, waiting for a signal. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, the words tumbling out in a rush of terror. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see. I'll pay for cleaning. Quiet." One word, delivered in a voice like silk over steel. Not loud, but absolute. Everyone in the immediate vicinity had stopped moving, stopped talking, stopped breathing. The air pressure in the room seemed to change. Somewhere behind me, I heard Marcus's footsteps stop. The man tilted his head slightly, studying me with an intensity that made me feel stripped bare. His suit was bespoke, I realized dimly, the kind of tailoring that cost more than a car. A platinum watch gleamed at his wrist, catching the chandelier light. He smelled of cedar and something darker, something that whispered of danger and expensive tastes. "What's your name?" he asked, his accent placing him from somewhere in the city's old money districts, educated in private schools I'd only seen in movies. "Emma," I whispered. "Emma Chen. I'm so sorry. You're frightened. It wasn't a question. His gaze flicked past me, landing on something, someone behind me, and his expression shifted into something that made the temperature drop. Of him? I didn't need to turn to know he meant Marcus. I could feel my ex's presence like a stain on my peripheral vision. I have a restraining order, I heard myself say, though I had no idea why I was telling this terrifying stranger my problems. Maybe because his stillness felt like the eye of a hurricane, a moment of safety before everything tore apart. But he's here, and I'm just staff, and no one will— The man raised one hand in a gesture so slight it barely qualified as movement. Instantly, two of the suited men melted away into the crowd, moving toward Marcus with purposeful strides. I saw Marcus's confident expression falter, watched him take a step back, then another, before the men escorted him firmly toward the exit. The restraining order, the man said, his attention returning to me with that unnerving focus. Is it current? I nodded, mute with shock. His full name. Marcus Reed. The words came out automatically, conditioned by months of police reports and court appearances. The man who still held the champagne glasses, impossibly they hadn't spilled, handed them to another suited figure who appeared at his elbow. He reached into his jacket and I tensed, but he only extracted a phone, sleek and black. He typed something with his thumb, one-handed, never looking away from me. It's handled, he said, slipping the phone away. He won't bother you again. I don't understand. You don't need to. His hand moved then, long fingers catching my chin, tilting my face up to the light. The touch was gentle but absolutely firm, allowing no resistance. He examined me like I was a painting he was considering purchasing, noting the shadows under my eyes, the cheap makeup, the way my uniform hung slightly loose because I'd lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. You're exhausted. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. 2 jobs. Rent went up. Something flickered in those storm-gray eyes. Not quite sympathy, but something else. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. Mr. Valentino, sir. Susan appeared at his elbow, her face pale with horror as she took in the champagne-soaked suit. The shattered crystal being swept up by hotel staff who'd materialized from nowhere. I'm so terribly sorry. We'll terminate her employment immediately. No, again. That one word, absolute as a judge's gavel. His fingers released my chin, but his gaze pinned me in place just as effectively. She stays. Send her to table 1. Susan's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Sir, that's your private— I'm aware. He turned slightly, addressing the massive man who'd caught the glasses. James, ensure Ms. Chen is reassigned, and handle the Reed situation permanently. Yes, sir. James's voice rumbled like distant thunder, and the promise in it made my knees weak. Mr. Valentino looked at me one last time, and I saw it then. The danger Susan had recognized immediately. This wasn't just wealth, this was power so absolute it didn't need to announce itself. Men like this didn't ask, they commanded. They didn't threaten, they simply acted, and the world rearranged itself around their will. Table 1, Emma Chen, he repeated, and it sounded almost like a threat or a promise. Don't keep me waiting. Then he turned and walked away, his entourage flowing around him like water, leaving me standing in a puddle of champagne and shattered crystal, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might faint. What the hell did you just do? Susan grabbed my arm, her nails biting through the fabric of my shirt. Do you have any idea who that is? I shook my head, mute. Dante Valentino, she whispered, and the name fell like a death sentence. He owns half the city. The other half is too afraid to admit he owns them too. Her grip tightened. And you just dumped champagne on him and somehow got assigned to his private table instead of fired. Or worse. The room spun slightly. I knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name, though it was usually whispered, never spoken aloud. The Valentino family had run the city's underworld for 3 generations. Their empire built on fear and blood and money so old it had forgotten its sins. Table 1. Susan shook me slightly. Now. And Emma? Her expression softened with something like pity. Whatever he wants, give it to him. Men like Dante Valentino don't make requests. They make offers you can't refuse. She pushed me toward the roped-off corner of the ballroom where a single table sat elevated on a dais, separated from the crowd by velvet ropes and the implicit understanding that some spaces were not for ordinary people. My legs moved mechanically, my mind still trying to process what had just happened. Marcus was gone. Dante Valentino had made him disappear with a gesture, and now he'd summoned me to his table. I climbed the 3 steps to the dais, my cheap heels clicking against marble, and approached the table where Dante sat with 3 other men, all of them radiating the same dangerous authority. Up close, I could see the champagne darkening his shoulder, the way his jaw tightened slightly, the only indication he was displeased. "Mr. Valentino," I began, my voice barely steady. "I'm truly sorry about—" "Sit." I blinked. "I'm working. I can't—" His hand moved to the chair beside him, pulling it out in an invitation that felt more like a command. The other men at the table watched me with varying expressions of interest and calculation, like predators deciding if I was prey or something else entirely. This isn't appropriate." My protests died as his gaze lifted to mine, and I saw something in those gray depths that made my breath catch. Not anger. Something far more dangerous. Interest. "Sit down, Emma-chen," Dante Valentino said softly, and every instinct I possessed screamed that this moment was a crossroads. That whatever choice I made next would determine everything that came after. "We need to discuss your ex-boyfriend, your restraining order, and exactly how you're going to repay me for this suit." His smile was slight, dark, and promised absolutely nothing good, but Marcus was gone, and I was so tired of being afraid. I sat. The chair was more comfortable than anything I'd ever sat in, upholstered in butter-soft leather that probably cost more than my monthly salary. I perched on the edge, hyper-aware of the 3 other men at the table who'd stopped their conversation the moment I sat down. The air here smelled different, richer, headier, with undertones of cigar smoke and cologne that didn't come from department stores. Dante lifted one finger, and a server I'd never seen before materialized with a fresh jacket draped over his arm. The exchange happened in silence, practiced and efficient. Dante stood, shrugging out of the champagne-soaked jacket with fluid grace, revealing a vest that hugged his frame with precision tailoring. For a moment, as he moved, I caught the edge of something dark beneath the vest. A holster, my mind supplied with sickening clarity. He was armed, at a charity gala, in the middle of the Rothmore Hotel. Of course he was. "Relax," he said, settling back into his chair after donning the fresh jacket. He'd caught me staring. "You look like you're about to bolt." "I'm working," I managed, gripping my hands together in my lap to stop them from shaking. "I shouldn't be sitting here. Susan will do exactly as she's told." Dante's attention shifted to one of the men across the table, older with silver threading through his dark hair. "Marco, status on the Reed situation?" Marco glanced at his phone, his expression neutral. "Subject was escorted from the premises. Background check is running now. Should have a full report within the hour, including current address, employment, known associates, and all violations of the restraining order." He looked at me then, something almost kind in his weathered features. "How long has he been bothering you, miss?" My throat closed. 6 months, since I got the restraining order. "And before that?" Dante's voice was still soft, but there was steel underneath now, cold and sharp. "A year. We dated for a year before I found out he was married, and had a girlfriend, and had stolen $40,000 from my bank account." The words tumbled out before I could stop them, shame burning my cheeks. I was stupid. He said he loved me, and I believed him. "You weren't stupid," the third man said, younger than the others, with kind eyes behind expensive frames. "You were trusting. Different thing entirely." He extended his hand across the table. "Anthony Valentino, Dante's cousin, and you've already met Marco, his head of security." I shook his hand automatically, my mind reeling. Head of security. These weren't just business associates or friends. This was Dante's inner circle, the people who made problems disappear. "The 4th chair?" I asked before I could stop myself, noting the empty seat to Dante's left. "James is handling your ex," Dante said, and the casual way he said it made my stomach flip. He's thorough. I don't want anyone hurt, I said quickly, panic rising. The restraining order, it's legal. I just need him to leave me alone. No one will be hurt, Dante interrupted, but his smile suggested his definition of hurt might be negotiable. Unless he violates the order again. Then we'll revisit the conversation. He leaned back, studying me with that unnerving focus. Tell me, Emma-chan, what do you do when you're not spilling champagne on dangerous men? The shift in topic threw me. I work here, and at a diner on 5th Street. Morning and evening shifts. Education? 2 years of college, business degree. I swallowed. I had to drop out when my grandmother got sick. Medical bills. Something flickered across his face, recognition maybe, or understanding. Family? Just me now. She passed last year. The words still hurt. A knife that never quite dulled. Marcus took her ring, the only thing I had left of her, pawned it for drug money, I found out later. The temperature at the table dropped. Anthony's expression hardened. Marco's jaw tightened. And Dante. Dante went very, very still in a way that reminded me of predators before they struck. Describe the ring, he said quietly. Rose gold, Victorian era, floral engraving, small diamond in the center. My voice cracked. It was appraised at $8,000, but the pawnshop gave him $300. By the time I found out, someone had already bought it. Dante pulled out his phone again, typed something with swift efficiency. We'll find it. You can't. It's been 6 months. I can and I will. He slipped the phone away, his gaze returning to me. Consider it part of your repayment for the suit. I stared at him. Your suit can't cost $8,000. His smile was dark, amused. Try 12. But I'm willing to negotiate terms. He gestured to a server, who immediately appeared with a crystal glass of what looked like whiskey. Dante took a sip, never breaking eye contact. You interest me, Emma-chan. Warning bells clanged in my head. I should get back to work. You're working now. His hand moved, casual but deliberate, to rest on the table between us, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. I have a proposition for you. I stumbled over the words, heat flooding my face. Not that kind of proposition. His amusement deepened, though I appreciate the blush. No, I'm talking about employment. I need someone I can trust in my household. Someone with no connections to my world, no loyalties to anyone but themselves. Someone invisible. I'm a server, I said weakly. I don't know anything about. You're quick on your feet, observant, and you've survived a year with a manipulative con artist without completely falling apart. Those are valuable skills. He leaned forward slightly, and the scent of him, cedar and danger, wrapped around me. I'm offering you a position as my personal assistant. Salary of $150,000 a year, housing included, full benefits, and complete protection from anyone who might wish you harm. The number hit me like a physical blow. $150,000. That was more than I'd make in 5 years at both my current jobs combined. Why? I whispered. You don't know me. I know enough. His gaze held mine, intense and unwavering. You're alone, vulnerable and desperate. That makes you honest in a way most people in my world aren't. You won't spy for my enemies because you don't have any connections to them. You won't steal because you've been stolen from and know how it feels. And you're terrified of me, which means you'll be careful. I should be terrified of you, I said, surprising myself with my boldness. Everyone else is. Smart girl. His approval felt dangerous, like praise from a teacher who might also be planning your execution. So, what's your answer? I looked around the ballroom, at the servers weaving through the crowd with practiced invisibility, at the guests dripping in wealth they'd been born into, at Susan watching me from across the room with an expression of horror and envy mixed together. I thought about my studio apartment with its broken heater, the collection notices piling up on my counter, the way I'd been rationing food to make rent. I thought about Marcus's smile as he'd moved toward me, the promise of more harassment, more fear, more of this grinding poverty that made me invisible to everyone who mattered. And I thought about the way Dante had made Marcus disappear with a gesture. I need to give notice at my jobs, I heard myself say. Already handled. You're done as of tonight. At my expression, he added, I texted your managers while you were talking. Gave them very generous severance payments for the inconvenience. Of course he had. Men like Dante Valentino didn't wait for permission. When do I start? The words felt like jumping off a cliff. But what was the alternative? Falling had always been inevitable. At least this way, someone might catch me. Tonight. He stood, and instantly Marco and Anthony rose with him. A choreographed movement that spoke of years of practice. James will drive you home to collect your belongings. You'll stay in the guest house on my estate until we determine the full extent of Reed's activities and ensure your safety. I can't just... Tonight? I floundered, trying to think of obligations, reasons to resist, but there was nothing. No family, no friends I'd kept after Marcus had isolated me, no life worth protecting. You can, and you will. Dante's hand extended toward me, an invitation to stand, to step into his world. Unless you'd prefer to go back to your apartment, where Marcus knows the address, and hope the restraining order protects you. My hand was in his before I consciously decided to move, his fingers closing around mine with gentle, inexorable pressure. He pulled me to my feet, and suddenly we were close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You're making a deal with the devil, I whispered. His smile was sharp as a blade. I know. But at least this devil keeps his promises. He released my hand, but the warmth of his touch lingered like a brand. James will take care of you. Do exactly as he says, and you'll be perfectly safe. And if I don't, then you'll learn very quickly why everyone in this city is afraid of me. He said it pleasantly, like discussing the weather, and somehow that made it more terrifying. But you're a smart girl, Emma. You'll learn fast. He turned to leave, Marco and Anthony falling into formation around him, and I stood frozen on the dais, watching my life pivot on an axis I hadn't known existed until an hour ago. Ms. Chen? A rumbling voice made me turn. James stood at the bottom of the steps, massive and intimidating, but his expression was almost gentle. We should go. The boss doesn't like to be kept waiting, and we need to get you somewhere secure before Reed realizes what's happened. What did happen? I descended the steps on shaking legs. What did you do to Marcus? Had a conversation. Made our position clear. James's smile was terrifying. He's been encouraged to leave the city, permanently. If he's smart, he'll take the encouragement. And if he's not smart, then I'll have another conversation with him. Won't be as pleasant. He gestured toward a side exit, his hand hovering near my elbow without touching, protective but not controlling. This way. The car's waiting. I followed him through the service corridors, past shocked staff members who stared at me like I'd grown a second head, out into the cool night air of the loading dock. A black SUV waited, windows tinted so dark they looked like holes in reality. Another man in a suit opened the rear door, and I glimpsed leather interior, soft lighting, luxury that belonged in a different world. I don't understand, I said, pausing at the door. Why is he doing this? Really? James studied me for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. The boss lost his sister 2 years ago. Domestic situation that went bad. Her husband was abusive, controlling. By the time we found out, it was too late. His jaw tightened. He doesn't like seeing women in danger. Brings out his protective instincts, sometimes too protective, if you know what I mean. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. He sees her when he looks at me, maybe. Or maybe he just sees someone who needs help and has the power to give it. James gestured to the SUV. Either way, you're safer with him than without him. That's not a threat, Ms. Chen. That's just reality in this city. I climbed into the SUV, sinking into leather seats that probably cost more than my entire apartment's furniture combined. The door closed with a solid thunk that spoke of armoring, of protection, of a barrier between me and the rest of the world. Through the tinted window, I watched the Rothmore Hotel recede as James pulled into traffic, handling the massive vehicle with practiced ease. Somewhere in that building, Dante Valentino was continuing his evening, making deals and issuing orders, reshaping reality with quiet words and subtle gestures, and I was in his orbit now, caught in his gravity, falling toward something I couldn't name. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from an unknown number. Your ring has been located. I'll have it for you by morning. Sleep well, Emma. D. I stared at the message, my heart hammering. He'd found it. In less than an hour, he'd found my grandmother's ring, the one piece of her I thought I'd lost forever. Another text followed. Welcome to my world. Try not to spill anything else on me. Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the knowledge that I'd just bound myself to one of the most dangerous men in the city, I found myself smiling. Then the smile faded as reality set in. I'd just agreed to work for a Mafia boss, and something told me that champagne-soaked suit was going to be the least expensive thing I'd ever owe him. The guest house was larger than my entire apartment building. I stood in the marble foyer, my threadbare duffel bag looking obscene against the cream-colored floors that gleamed like still water. Crystal sconces cast warm light across walls decorated with art that probably belonged in museums. Through an archway, I could see a living room with furniture so pristine I was afraid to breathe near it. Your quarters, Ms. Chen, James said, setting down the 2 other bags he'd helped me pack. Everything I owned in the world fit into 3 bags, a fact that suddenly felt humiliating in this palace of excess. Master bedroom is upstairs, fully stocked kitchen through there. Bathroom has a soaking tub and separate shower. Security system is already programmed with your fingerprints. The boss had that handled while we drove. Of course he did. Dante Valentino operated at a speed that left normal people dizzy. I can't. This is too much, I started. You can, and it isn't. James's expression softened slightly. The boss wants you comfortable and safe. This is how he ensures both. There's a panic button in every room. Red button. Can't miss it. You press it. I'm here in under 2 minutes with backup. Understood? I nodded mutely. Good. I'll be in the main house if you need anything. It's just across the garden. You can see it through those windows. He pointed to French doors that opened onto what looked like a landscaped paradise. All shadow and moonlight now. Beyond it, I could make out the shape of a mansion that made this guest house look like a shed. Breakfast is at 7. The boss will want to go over your duties and expectations. After James left, I stood in the silence, my heart pounding. The guest house smelled of lemon polish and fresh flowers. A massive arrangement of white roses sat on the entry table, their perfume almost overwhelming. No card, but I knew who'd sent them. I climbed the stairs on shaking legs, found the bedroom, and nearly wept at the sight of the bed. King-sized, with linens that looked like clouds, more pillows than any one person could use. The bathroom was bigger than my old apartment's main room, all marble and gold fixtures and towels so thick and soft I wanted to live in them. A garment bag hung on the closet door. Inside, I found clothes, designer labels, my exact size, ranging from casual wear to business attire. A note card in elegant handwriting. For tomorrow, wear the blue dress. D. My hands shook as I touched the fabric. Silk, real silk, the kind that whispered against skin. How did he know my size? How had he arranged all this in the hour it took James to drive me home and back? Money, I realized, money and power could accomplish anything. I showered in water pressure that felt like heaven, dried off with towels that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, and climbed into the bed wearing one of the silk pajama sets I'd found in a drawer, also my size, also perfectly chosen. The sheets smelled of lavender and felt like sleeping on air. I should have been terrified. I should have been planning my escape. Instead, I slept better than I had in years. Morning came with soft light filtering through curtains I didn't remember closing. A knock at the door revealed a woman in her 50s, professionally dressed, carrying a tray with breakfast. Ms. Chen, I'm Maria, the head housekeeper. Her accent was Italian, warm and maternal. Mr. Valentino thought you might like breakfast before your meeting. He's a thoughtful man, no matter what people say. The tray held fresh fruit, pastries that smelled like Paris, and coffee that tasted like liquid gold. I ate at the small table by the window, watching gardeners work in the early light, shaping hedges into geometric perfection. The blue dress fit like it was made for me. Probably was, knowing Dante. It hugged my curves without being inappropriate, fell to just above my knees, and made me look like someone who belonged in this world. The shoes were comfortable despite their height, and somehow there was even jewelry, simple but elegant. a gold necklace and matching earrings. I barely recognized myself in the mirror. At precisely 7, James appeared to escort me to the main house. We crossed the garden on a stone path lined with roses, and I tried not to gawk at the mansion as it grew larger. It was the kind of house that had a name, that got featured in architectural magazines, that whispered old money and older power. Inside was even more impressive. The foyer could fit my old apartment 3 times over, with a double staircase sweeping up to a second floor. More art, more marble, more evidence of wealth so vast it became abstract. James led me through hallways that seemed to stretch forever, past rooms I barely glimpsed, a library, a formal dining room, what looked like a home theater. Finally, we reached a set of double doors made of dark wood, carved with intricate patterns. "The boss's office," James said. "He's expecting you. Just knock and enter." My hand trembled as I raised it to knock. This was it. The moment where I found out what Dante Valentino really wanted from me, what price I'd really agreed to pay. "Come in, Emma." His voice carried through the door, rich and commanding. I pushed the door open and stepped into controlled chaos. The office was enormous, dominated by a desk that looked like it cost more than a car. Papers covered every surface. Multiple computer screens displayed what looked like stock tickers and security feeds, and the walls were lined with file cabinets and bookshelves. Dante sat behind the desk, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that spoke of regular workouts. He was reading something on his phone, his expression focused, and didn't look up immediately. This, I realized, was Dante in his element, not the polished socialite from last night, but the man who ran an empire. "Sit," he said without looking up. Not rude, just efficient. I sat in one of the leather chairs facing the desk, my hands folded in my lap, trying not to fidget. The office smelled of coffee and leather and something else, gunpowder maybe, though that could have been my imagination. He set down his phone and finally looked at me, and something flickered in his gray eyes. Approval, maybe. "The dress suits you. Thank you. For everything. The clothes, the guest house, the—" "Don't thank me yet. You haven't heard what I need from you." He stood, moving to a sideboard where a coffee service waited. "Coffee?" "And yes, that's an order, not a question. You look like you need it." He poured 2 cups with practiced ease, added cream to mine without asking. How did he know? And returned, setting my cup in front of me before settling back into his chair. The casual domesticity of it was jarring, coming from a man who'd made my ex-boyfriend disappear with a gesture. "Your duties," he began, all business now. "You'll manage my personal schedule, handle correspondence that doesn't require Marco's security clearance, and act as my companion at social events that need a softer presence." Companion? The word felt loaded with implications. "Not like that. I'm not buying you, Emma." His expression hardened slightly. "I need someone at my side who doesn't have ties to my world, who can move through social circles without triggering suspicion. Someone who looks harmless, normal, approachable. You'll attend galas, charity events, business dinners. You'll smile, make small talk, and report anything unusual you observe. You want me to spy for you. I want you to be my eyes and ears in places where my reputation precedes me. There's a difference." He sipped his coffee, studying me over the rim. "You'll also live here, in the guest house. Non-negotiable. I need you close, and you need the protection my home provides." "From Marcus? From everyone." His expression turned grim. "The moment you stepped into my world, you became a potential target. My enemies will see you as leverage, a weakness they can exploit. Living here keeps you safe and makes it clear you're under my protection." The weight of that settled over me like a heavy blanket. I didn't ask for this. "No, you asked to escape your ex-boyfriend. I provided that. This is the price." He set down his cup, his gaze intense. "I'm not a good man, Emma. Don't make the mistake of thinking I am. But I keep my people safe, and as of last night, you're my people. That means something." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and satisfaction flickered across his face. "Your ring." He pulled open a drawer and extracted a small velvet box, sliding it across the desk. My hands shook as I opened it. There, nestled in silk, was my grandmother's ring. Rose gold gleaming, the tiny diamond catching the light. I'd thought I'd never see it again, thought it was lost forever in the city's pawnshop underground. How? I whispered, tears burning my eyes. I made it clear to every pawnshop, jeweler, and fence in the city that I wanted this ring, and that anyone who helped find it would be rewarded. Anyone who'd had it and didn't come forward would be less fortunate. His smile was sharp. It was located in a private collection by midnight. The collector was happy to return it when I explained the situation. I slipped the ring onto my finger. It still fit perfectly, and felt something break loose in my chest. You didn't have to do this. I did, actually. You're mine to protect now, and that means returning what was stolen from you. He stood, moving around the desk to stand in front of me. Up close, I could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his collar was slightly loosened, small imperfections that made him feel more real, more dangerous. Say it, he commanded softly. Say what? That you understand what you've agreed to. That you know there's no going back from this. His hand moved to cup my chin, tilting my face up the way he had last night, and I felt the same electric shock of contact. Once you're mine, Emma, you stay mine. I don't share, and I don't let go easily. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, something dark and long-buried stirred in my chest. Relief, maybe, at being claimed, at mattering to someone powerful enough to make the world bend. I understand, I whispered. Good girl. The praise went straight to somewhere low in my belly, warming me in ways I didn't want to examine. He released my chin, stepping back. All business again. Maria will show you to your office. It's connected to mine through that door. You'll find everything you need there. This afternoon, we have a meeting with the Castellano family. You'll attend as my companion. The Castellano family? His smile turned predatory. One of my business rivals. They've been encroaching on territory that belongs to me. This meeting will make our respective positions clear. He moved back to his desk, already shifting focus to whatever came next. Wear the black dress. And Emma? He looked up, pinning me with those storm-gray eyes. Stay close to me during the meeting. Don't speak unless I tell you to, and don't react to anything you hear, no matter how shocking. Can you do that? I nodded, my mouth dry. We'll see. His attention returned to his papers, a dismissal. Maria's waiting in the hall, and Emma, welcome to the family business. I left his office on shaking legs, my grandmother's ring heavy on my finger, the weight of his words even heavier on my soul. Maria appeared instantly, warm and grandmotherly, chattering about schedules and meal preferences as she led me to my new office. It was beautiful, a smaller version of Dante's, with a view of the gardens and all the technology I could need. But all I could think about was the way he'd said mine, the possessive promise in it, the dark heat in his eyes. I'd escaped one controlling man and walked straight into the arms of another. Except Marcus had wanted to own me out of weakness, to feel powerful by diminishing me. Dante's possession felt different, fierce and protective, like a dragon guarding treasure. I just hoped I didn't get burned. The Castellano meeting took place in a private room at an Italian restaurant that looked innocuous from the outside, but radiated danger once you stepped inside. Men in expensive suits lingered near the exits, their jackets cut to hide weapons. The air was thick with tension, and the smell of garlic and wine. I wore the black dress as instructed, more formal than the morning's blue, with a neckline that was elegant without being revealing. Dante had appeared at my office door at precisely 2:00, looking devastating in a charcoal suit, and examined me with the same thorough attention he gave everything. Perfect, he'd said, and offered his arm. Remember, stay close, stay quiet, observe everything. Now I sat at a large round table, Dante on one side of me, Marco on the other, with 4 Castellano men across from us. The head of their family, Leonardo Castellano, was older than Dante, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. He'd looked at me when we arrived, a calculating assessment that made my skin crawl. Valentino, Leonardo said, swirling wine in a crystal glass. You bring a date to a business meeting. How American of you. I bring what I choose to bring, Leonardo. Dante's voice was mild, but his hand found my knee under the table, a possessive weight that felt like a brand. Shall we discuss why we're here? The meeting devolved into careful verbal warfare, discussions of territory and percentages, veiled threats wrapped in polite language. I did as Dante instructed, stayed silent, observed everything. Watched the way Leonardo's second-in-command kept checking his phone, how the youngest Castellano couldn't meet Dante's eyes, the way their body language spoke of fear poorly hidden. Dante was winning, though to an outsider it might not look like it. He barely raised his voice, never threatened openly. But somehow Leonardo kept giving ground, agreeing to terms that clearly favored the Valentino family. It was masterful, terrifying, and oddly beautiful, watching power in action, seeing how Dante commanded a room without ever losing his calm. Then Leonardo's gaze fell on me again, and his smile turned cruel. Where did you find this one, Valentino? She looks like she came from a soup kitchen. Dante's hand tightened on my knee, his grip just shy of painful. Watch your mouth, Leonardo. I'm just curious. Usually your women have more polish. Leonardo leaned forward, his eyes stripping me bare. What's your name, girl? Before I could answer, Dante moved. Not fast, not violent, just a shift of his body that somehow filled the space with menace. She doesn't speak to you. She doesn't exist for you. And if you look at her like that again, I'll take it as a declaration of war. The room went silent. Even the guards stopped moving. Leonardo's smile vanished. For a whore? For what's mine? Dante's voice was soft, deadly. Test me, Leonardo. See what happens. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. Under the table, Dante's hand moved from my knee to lace with my fingers, holding tight, grounding me. Leonardo studied us for a long moment, then laughed, forced, nervous. My apologies. I didn't realize she was significant. Now you do. Dante released my hand, standing, pulling me up with him. The meeting was over, though half the items on the agenda hadn't been discussed. We're done here. You'll have my terms in writing by tomorrow. Accept them, or face the consequences. He guided me out with a hand at the small of my back, Marco and James falling in around us like a protective wall. We didn't speak until we were in the SUV, pulling away from the restaurant. I'm sorry, Dante said finally, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. Leonardo is an old-school pig who thinks women are property. I should have known he'd try something. It's fine, I said, though my hands were still shaking. I've dealt with worse. That's not the point. He turned to face me, his gray eyes blazing. You're under my protection now. That means no one disrespects you. No one threatens you. No one even looks at you wrong without answering to me. His hand cupped my face, gentle despite the fury in his expression. Do you understand, Emma? You're not invisible anymore. You're mine. And that makes you untouchable. The intensity of his gaze, the possessive promise in his words. It should have frightened me. Instead, for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt safe. I understand, I whispered. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, a gesture so tender it stole my breath. Then he pulled away, composing himself, becoming the controlled businessman again. But I'd seen beneath the mask now. Seen the fire, the possessiveness, the fierce protectiveness that bordered on obsession. And God help me, I wanted to see more. 3 weeks passed in a blur of luxury and lessons in survival. I learned that Dante rose at 5 every morning, already on his phone before the sun crested the horizon. I learned that he took his coffee black, hated inefficiency, and could silence a room with a single look. I learned the names of his enemies, his allies, and the vast gray area in between where most of the city's power players resided. I learned that Marco had a daughter in college studying art history, that James coached Little League on weekends, that Anthony was engaged to a kindergarten teacher who had no idea what the Valentino family really did. I learned that monsters could be human, that dangerous men could be kind, and that the world was far more complicated than I'd ever imagined. And I learned that Dante Valentino was as obsessed with control as he was with protecting what he considered his. "You're not eating enough," he said one morning, appearing in the guest house kitchen where I was forcing down toast before our scheduled meeting with city officials. He'd started doing this, showing up unannounced, checking on me, invading my space with casual authority. "Maria says you barely touched dinner last night." I wasn't hungry. I set down the toast, uncomfortable with his scrutiny. "And doesn't Maria have better things to do than report on my eating habits?" "She worries. So do I." He moved closer, backing me against the counter with the same predatory grace he brought to business meetings. This close, I could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes, smell the cedar and danger that clung to him. "You've lost weight since you came here. That stops now. You can't order me to eat, can't I?" His hand came up to cup my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "You're too thin, Emma. It makes you look fragile, and I don't like fragile things in my world. They break too easily. Maybe I am fragile." The words came out sharper than intended. "Maybe that's why I'm here, because I needed someone stronger to save me." Something dark flickered in his expression. "Is that what you think? That you're weak?" "Aren't I?" I met his gaze, refusing to look away even though his intensity made me want to. I let Marcus manipulate me for a year. I let him steal from me, control me, isolate me from everyone I cared about. I was too stupid to see what he was until it was too late. You survived. His other hand came up, framing my face between his palms, holding me captive. You escaped, got a restraining order, rebuilt your life from nothing. You didn't break, Emma. You bent, and then you came back stronger. That's not weakness. That's steel wrapped in silk. The praise shouldn't have affected me so deeply, but it did. Something in my chest loosened, warmth spreading through places that had been cold for so long. "Dante," I started, but the words died as his phone rang. He pulled away with a curse, answering with a curt "what?" His expression darkened as he listened. "When? How many?" "No, don't move until I get there. 20 minutes. He ended the call, his mask of control cracking to reveal fury underneath. "I have to go. Emergency at the docks. Is everything fine? It will be fine." But his jaw was tight, his movements sharp as he headed for the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back. "Stay here. James is outside. Don't leave the property without him, understood?" "Dante, what's wrong?" "Just stay here, Emma, please." The please caught me off guard. He so rarely asked instead of commanded, "Promise me." "I promise." He nodded once and disappeared, leaving me alone with half-eaten toast and the lingering warmth of his touch on my face. The afternoon stretched endlessly. I tried to work, reviewing correspondence and managing his calendar, but my mind kept drifting to his expression. The barely controlled rage that suggested something serious had happened. James stood guard outside, silent and immovable as a mountain, refusing to answer my questions about what was happening at the docks. Around 4, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the message made my blood freeze. "Miss me, Emma? We need to talk. Meet me at Roselli's Cafe on 5th in 1 hour. Come alone, or I'll make things difficult for your new boyfriend. M. Marcus." My hands shook as I read the message again. He wasn't supposed to be in the city. James had said he'd been encouraged to leave. But here he was, threatening me, threatening Dante. I should tell James, should show him the message, let Dante's people handle it, but the message said to come alone. And something in me, the part that had survived Marcus's manipulation, that had rebuilt from nothing, wanted to face him myself, wanted to prove I wasn't the frightened girl he'd controlled anymore. Stupid. It was monumentally stupid. I went anyway. I told James I needed air, wanted to walk in the gardens. He hesitated but agreed when I stayed within sight of the guest house. Then I slipped out through the service gate I'd discovered during my exploration of the property, barely more than a gap in the hedge, probably used by gardeners. The walk to 5th Street took 20 minutes. Every step felt like betrayal. Of Dante's trust, of the protection he'd offered, of the promise I'd made. But Marcus's threat echoed in my mind. "Make things difficult for your new boyfriend." What did that mean? What could Marcus possibly do to hurt someone like Dante? Roselli's Cafe was a small Italian place I'd worked near before, cheap and cheerful with red checkered tablecloths. Marcus sat at a corner table looking worse than I remembered, thinner, with shadows under his eyes and a nervous energy that set off alarm bells. "Emma." He stood as I approached, his smile the same charming one that had fooled me for so long. "You look amazing. Money agrees with you." "What do you want, Marcus?" I stayed standing, ready to run. "You're violating the restraining order just by being here." "I wanted to warn you." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please sit, this is important." Against my better judgment, I sat, every muscle tense. "Warn me about what?" "About Dante Valentino." Marcus leaned forward, his expression earnest, too earnest, the way it always got when he was lying. "Emma, do you have any idea who that man is? What he's capable of?" "I know exactly who he is. Do you? Do you know how many people have disappeared after crossing him? How many bodies they've pulled out of the harbor with Valentino calling cards?" His hand reached across the table toward mine. I jerked back. "He's not a businessman, Emma. He's a monster. And he's using you. You're one to talk about using people." Anger burned through my fear. "You stole $40,000 from me, Marcus. You stole my grandmother's ring. You lied to me for a year while you were married to someone else. Why should I believe anything you say?" "Because I'm trying to save your life." His voice rose, drawing looks from other patrons. He lowered it, leaning closer. "I made mistakes, okay? I was in a bad place, owed some bad people money, but I never would have hurt you. Not like Valentino will. Dante got my grandmother's ring back." I pulled my hand up, showing him the rose gold gleaming on my finger. "In less than a day, he found what you stole and returned it to me. What have you ever given me besides debt and heartbreak?" Marcus's expression darkened. "He's not doing this out of kindness, Emma. Men like Valentino don't do anything without expecting something in return. What did he ask for? What price did you agree to pay? That's none of your business. It is when you're walking into a trap." He pulled out his phone, swiped through photos, and showed me the screen. "Recognize her?" The photo showed a young woman, beautiful, with dark hair and eyes full of life. She stood next to a younger version of Dante, both of them laughing at something off camera. "His sister," I said, remembering what James had told me. "She died 2 years ago. She didn't just die. She was murdered by her husband when she tried to leave him." Marcus swiped to another photo, this one of the woman covered in bruises, her face barely recognizable. My stomach turned. Valentino blamed himself for not protecting her. Now he collects broken women like trophies, convinces himself he's saving them. "You're not special, Emma. You're just his latest project, his way of assuaging guilt." The words hit like physical blows, finding all my deepest insecurities and twisting. Was Marcus right? Was I just a replacement for a dead sister? A guilt offering? A project? "Look at you," Marcus continued, his voice softening into the manipulation I knew so well. "You're wearing designer clothes, living in a mansion, playing house with a criminal. This isn't you, Emma. Come back with me. We can leave the city together, start over somewhere Valentino can't reach us." "You're insane." I stood, chair scraping loudly. "You think I'd go anywhere with you after everything you did? I think you're scared and confused, and you're making decisions that will get you killed." He stood too, grabbing my wrist. His grip was tight, painful, exactly like it used to be. "I'm offering you a way out. Last chance, Emma. Let go of me." "Not until you listen," the lady said. "Let go." The voice came from behind me, cold and deadly familiar. I turned to find Dante standing 3 feet away, flanked by Marco and James. His expression was blank, empty in a way that was infinitely more terrifying than rage. Behind them, I could see 2 more men in suits, blocking the cafe exits. Marcus's hand dropped from my wrist like I'd burned him. "Valentino." "Mr. Reed." Dante's voice was pleasant, conversational, completely at odds with the murder in his eyes. "I believe you were encouraged to leave the city. Yet here you are, violating a restraining order, harassing what's mine." He looked at me then, and I saw the betrayal beneath his control. "Emma, come here." It wasn't a request. I moved to his side on trembling legs. His arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me close, possessive and protective and furious all at once. "I was just talking to her," Marcus said, backing away. "No harm done." "No harm?" Dante's smile was sharp as a blade. "You touched her. You threatened her. You made her break a promise to me by coming here." His attention shifted to me briefly. "We'll discuss that later." Then back to Marcus. "You've made several critical errors in judgment, Mr. Reed. Would you like to know what they are?" Marcus's face had gone pale. "Look, I was just... First, you underestimated my reach. Did you really think I wouldn't have people watching you? That I didn't know the moment you entered the city?" Dante's voice never rose, but somehow it filled the cafe, silencing every other conversation. "Second, you underestimated what she means to me. She's not a project or a trophy or a guilt offering. She's mine. My employee, my responsibility, my..." He paused, something flickering in his expression. "Mine. And I protect what's mine with extreme prejudice. I didn't mean any disrespect. Third, and most critically, you touched her." Dante released me, stepping forward with predatory grace. Marco and James moved with him, a choreographed dance of menace. "That wrist you grabbed? Those fingerprints you left? They're going to cost you, Mr. Reed." "Wait," Marcus stumbled back, knocking into his chair. "I'm sorry, okay? I'll leave. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. You're right about that." Dante nodded to James. "Take him. Make it educational." "No." I grabbed Dante's arm without thinking. "Please don't hurt him. He's not worth it." Dante looked down at where my hand clutched his sleeve, then at my face, his expression unreadable. "He threatened you. He violated the restraining order. He put his hands on you." Each statement was delivered with careful precision. "And you broke your promise to me, put yourself in danger, to meet with him. Why?" "He said he'd make things difficult for you if I didn't come alone," the words tumbled out. "I didn't want him to hurt you." Dante's laugh was short, sharp, lacking any humor. "Hurt me? Emma, he's a small-time con artist with delusions of relevance. He couldn't hurt me if I stood still and gave him a free shot." His hand came up to cup my face, the gesture gentle despite his anger. "But he could hurt you, and you walked into his trap anyway, alone without protection, because you thought you could handle it yourself. I'm sorry." "Not yet. You're not." He released me, turning to James. "Take Reed to the warehouse. Standard treatment for restraining order violations. And James, make sure he understands that if he ever comes within 100 miles of this city again, next time won't be educational." James hauled Marcus toward the exit, the con artist's protests fading as they disappeared into a black SUV outside. The cafe's other patrons had suddenly found their meals fascinating, everyone carefully not watching the scene unfolding. Dante took my arm, not roughly but with unmistakable authority, and guided me out to his own vehicle. We drove in silence, the tension so thick I could barely breathe. Marco sat in the front with the driver, occasionally glancing back with an expression that might have been sympathy. When we reached the estate, Dante didn't take me to the guest house. Instead, he led me into the main house, through hallways I'd never seen, to a room that could only be his private study. Darker than his office, more personal, with leather furniture and shelves of first editions and a massive desk that suggested this was where he did his real work. He closed the door with deliberate care, then turned to face me. "Explain," he said quietly. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Dante stood with his back to the door, hands in his pockets, his expression carefully neutral, which was somehow worse than anger. In the low lamplight of his study, he looked less like the polished businessman and more like what he truly was, a predator deciding whether I was prey or something else entirely. "I thought I could handle it," I said finally, my voice small. "Marcus said he'd make things difficult for you if I didn't come alone. I thought I could make him leave, convince him to go away without involving you. So you broke your promise, left the safety of my home, and walked into an obvious trap." His voice was too calm, too controlled. "Do you have any idea what could have happened? What he could have done to you? He's just Marcus. He's a desperate man with nothing to lose who knows you're connected to me." Dante moved then, closing the distance between us with 3 long strides. His hands gripped my shoulders, not painful, but firm enough that I couldn't pull away. Do you know what people would pay for leverage over me? What my enemies would do to someone I've publicly claimed as mine? I didn't think. No, you didn't. You thought you were still invisible. Still that girl who had to solve her own problems because no one else would help. His grip tightened fractionally. But you're not her anymore, Emma. You're mine now. And that means you don't get to throw yourself into danger because you're afraid of being a burden. It means you trust me to handle threats. It means you keep your promises. Tears burned my eyes. Marcus showed me pictures of your sister. He said I was just a replacement, a project to assuage your guilt. He said you collect broken women and convince yourself you're saving them. Something flickered across Dante's face. Pain, quickly masked. His hands dropped from my shoulders, and you believed him. I don't know what to believe. The tears spilled over, hot and angry. Why did you really bring me here, Dante? Was it just about protection, or was Marcus right? Am I just a stand-in for someone you couldn't save? He turned away, moving to the window that overlooked his estate. For a long moment he said nothing, his profile carved from shadow and lamplight. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough, stripped of its usual control. My sister, Isabella, was 19 when she married Carlo Russo. I warned her he was dangerous, that the Russo family couldn't be trusted. She thought I was being overprotective, controlling. We fought about it, said things we couldn't take back. He paused, his jaw working. She cut me out of her life for almost a year. By the time she reached out, by the time she admitted I'd been right, it was too late. Carlo had isolated her, broken her down piece by piece. When she tried to leave, he killed her rather than let her go. My hand went to my mouth, horror washing through me. I got there 10 minutes too late. His reflection in the window showed no emotion, but his hands were fisted at his sides. 10 minutes. If I'd driven faster, if I'd known sooner, if I'd been less proud and checked on her anyway, she died because I failed to protect her. Dante? So yes, he continued, cutting me off. When I saw you in that ballroom, terrified of a man who'd hurt you, who'd stolen from you, who wouldn't let you go, yes, I saw Isabella. I saw a chance to do what I couldn't do for her. He turned then, and the raw pain in his eyes stole my breath. But you're not a replacement, Emma. You're not a project or a trophy or a way to assuage guilt. He stopped, something shifting in his expression, and suddenly he was moving toward me again, closing the distance with purpose. His hands framed my face, tilting it up to meet his burning gaze. You're you, he said roughly. Stubborn and brave and too smart for your own good. You challenge me, question me, refuse to be cowed even when you should be terrified. You make me laugh at breakfast and drive me insane by lunch. You're not Isabella. You're Emma. And somewhere in the last 3 weeks, you stopped being my responsibility and became something else entirely. What? I whispered, afraid to breathe, afraid to break whatever spell this was. Mine, he said simply, like it explained everything. Not because you're broken and need saving, because you're strong enough to survive anything, and I want that strength, that fire, that steel wrapped in silk next to me. Because when Leonardo Castellano insulted you, I wanted to burn his world down. Because when I saw you with Marcus, touching him, letting him put his hands on you, his grip tightened. Not quite painful, but possessive beyond reason. I wanted to kill him, Dante continued, his voice dropping to something dark and dangerous. Not for violating the restraining order, not for threatening you, but for daring to touch what's mine. Do you understand what that means, Emma? How far past professional this has gone? My heart hammered against my ribs. You're my employer. It's not appropriate. Fuck, appropriate. The curse shocked me. I'd never heard him lose control like this. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the full truth. But I've never lied to you, and I won't start now. I want you. Not as an employee, not as a project, as mine, in every way that matters. This is crazy, I breathed. We barely know each other. It's only been 3 weeks. I knew the moment you spilled champagne on me and looked at me like I might destroy you and chose to sit at my table anyway. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, the gesture devastating in its tenderness. I knew when you asked me about protecting you instead of just running. I knew when you wore my grandmother's ring like armor and walked into that meeting with the Castellanos without flinching. And I definitely knew when you broke your promise and went to meet Marcus, not to save yourself, but to protect me. I'm not brave enough for this, I whispered. For you. For this world. You're brave enough to survive Marcus, to rebuild from nothing, to stand in front of me right now and tell me the truth instead of what I want to hear. His forehead touched mine, and I felt the tension vibrating through him, the barely leashed control. I'm asking you, Emma Chen. Not ordering, not demanding, asking, stay with me, not as my employee, as mine. Let me keep you safe, give you everything you've ever wanted, protect you from everyone who's ever hurt you. And what do I give you? My voice cracked. What could I possibly offer someone like you? You. His answer was immediate, absolute. Your strength, your honesty, your fire, the way you look at me like I'm both a monster and a man, and somehow accept both. His hand slid from my face to my waist, pulling me flush against him. I'm not promising easy, Emma. My life is dangerous, complicated, often brutal. But I swear on Isabella's grave that no one will ever hurt you again, that you'll never be invisible, never be taken for granted, never wonder if you matter. Tears streamed down my face now, my carefully constructed walls crumbling. I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you smart. His smile was soft, almost tender. But don't be scared of me, Tesoro. Be scared of how far I'll go to keep you. Be scared of what I'll do to anyone who tries to take you from me. Be scared of the fact that I'm never letting you go. Even if you ask me to. That's not healthy, I said. But my hands were fisting in his shirt, holding on instead of pushing away. Probably not. He lowered his head, his lips brushing my temple, my cheekbone, the corner of my mouth. But I've never claimed to be healthy, just honest. And honestly, Emma, I'm obsessed with you, possessive of you, so far past professional boundaries I can't even see them anymore. If that terrifies you, say so now, and I'll step back. I'll keep you safe, keep our arrangement professional, and never touch you like this again. He pulled back slightly, giving me space to breathe, to think, to choose. And that, the fact that he was giving me a choice, even though every line of his body screamed possession, that decided me. I don't want you to step back, I whispered. The words were barely out before his mouth claimed mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. Not gentle or exploratory, but consuming, possessive, a brand as much as a caress. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head exactly where he wanted it, and I melted against him, all my careful control shattering. He tasted like whiskey and danger and dark promises, and I wanted more, wanted everything. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard, my lipstick smudged across his mouth, his control visibly frayed. Say it, he commanded roughly. Say you're mine. I'm yours, I whispered, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. His smile was fierce, triumphant. Good girl. He kissed me again, softer this time but no less possessive. Now we discuss consequences. I blinked, still dizzy from his kiss. Consequences? For breaking your promise. For leaving the estate without protection. For putting yourself in danger. His expression turned stern, though heat still burned in his eyes. I'm not a man who makes idle threats, Emma. If you're mine, you follow my rules. And the first rule is that you don't risk yourself, ever. So, what's my punishment? I tried for defiant, but it came out breathless. His laugh was dark, full of promise. You're staying in the main house from now on. The guest house is too far from my room. I want you where I can reach you, protect you, keep an eye on you. His hands slid down to my waist again, possessive. You'll also have a security detail whenever you leave the property, non-negotiable. That's not a punishment, that's house arrest. His smile turned wicked, perhaps. But you'll get used to it. You'll get used to me, to my need to know where you are, who you're with, that you're safe. You'll get used to belonging to me, Tesoro, because I'm never letting go. It should have felt like a cage. Instead, it felt like the first deep breath I'd taken in years. Okay, I said simply. Something softened in his expression. Okay? Okay. I reached up, touching his face, feeling the stubble rough beneath my palm. I'm tired of being alone, Dante. Tired of being invisible. Tired of fighting for scraps of affection and safety. If you want me, if this is real, it's real. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm, then to the rose gold ring on my finger. More real than anything in my life has been in years. Then yes, I'm yours. Just, I paused, needing him to understand. Don't make me regret it. Don't turn into Marcus. Don't. I'm nothing like him. Dante's voice turned to steel. Marcus wanted to own you because it made him feel powerful. I want you because you make me feel human. There's a difference, Emma, and I'll spend the rest of our lives proving it to you. The rest of our lives? I raised an eyebrow. That's a long time. Not long enough. He pulled me close again, holding me like I might disappear if he loosened his grip. You walked into my world 3 weeks ago covered in champagne and fear, and somehow you've become the center of it. I don't do anything by halves, Tesoro. When I claim something, it's forever. I buried my face in his chest, breathing in cedar and danger and the distinctive scent that was purely him. You're intense. You have no idea. His hand stroked through my hair, soothing now instead of possessive. But you'll learn. And Emma? Marcus won't bother you again, ever. I made sure of that. I pulled back to look at him. What did you do? Nothing he didn't deserve. Nothing that will keep him from living a long, healthy life far away from here. His smile was sharp. I can be merciful when properly motivated. And you, Emma Chen, are excellent motivation. 6 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of our bedroom. Our bedroom, because Dante had moved me into his suite the day after our first kiss and refused to let me leave. I woke to find him already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with that intense focus that still made my heart race. Creepy, I murmured, but I was smiling. Beautiful, he corrected, leaning down to kiss me. And mine. Possessive, I teased, but my arms wound around his neck, holding him close. Always. He rolled, pulling me on top of him, his hands settling on my waist with familiar ownership. Good morning, Mrs. Valentino. The ring on my finger, not my grandmother's ring, which I wore on my right hand now, but a new one, a massive diamond that had been his grandmother's, caught the light. We'd married 3 months ago in a small ceremony on the estate, with only his inner circle present. Marco had walked me down the aisle. Maria had cried. And Dante had looked at me like I was the only thing in his world that mattered. Good morning, Mr. Valentino, I said, pretending the title didn't still send a thrill through me. Life wasn't perfect. Dante was controlling, possessive to the point of obsession. And sometimes his world brought danger close enough to terrify me. But he kept his promises. I was never invisible, never taken for granted, never had to wonder if I mattered. Marcus had disappeared to somewhere in South America, with enough money to start over, and enough fear to never return. The Castellano family had been absorbed into Valentino operations after Leonardo made the mistake of threatening me again, and I'd learned to navigate the complex world of the city's underworld with Dante as my guide and protector. What are you thinking about? Dante asked, reading my expression with the ease of someone who'd made studying me his life's work. That I spilled champagne on a Mafia boss and somehow ended up married to him. I traced the line of his jaw, still amazed that I had the right to touch him like this. It's been quite a year. Best mistake you ever made, he said, pulling me down for a deeper kiss. Marrying you, or the champagne? Both. His smile was wicked, warm, completely unguarded in a way he only ever was with me. Though I prefer to think of it as fate. You were meant to walk into my life, Emma. To save me as much as I saved you. That's very romantic for a crime lord. I'm a complicated man. He rolled us again, pinning me beneath him, his expression turning serious, but I mean it, Tesoro. Before you, I was just going through motions, building an empire, honoring Isabella's memory, existing. You made me live again, made me remember what it feels like to care about something beyond business and revenge. I cupped his face. This dangerous, possessive, impossibly complex man who'd become my whole world. I love you. I know. His smile was smug. You tell me every day, usually when I'm being overprotective and irritating. You are overprotective and irritating. And you love me anyway. He kissed me again, soft and deep and full of promises. Just as I love you, my Emma, my wife, mine. The possessiveness still made me shiver, but now it was anticipation instead of fear, because I'd learned the difference between control that diminished and protection that empowered. Dante's obsession wasn't about making me small. It was about keeping me safe so I could be everything I was meant to be. Forever, I whispered against his lips. Forever, he agreed, and sealed the promise with a kiss that tasted like cedar and danger and home. I'd walked into his world afraid and alone, thinking I was escaping one trap only to fall into another. But sometimes the cage you choose, the one built of fierce protection and possessive devotion, isn't a cage at all. Sometimes it's exactly where you're meant to be. And as Dante's arms wrapped around me, as the morning light painted our bedroom in shades of gold, I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I belonged. In the arms of a man who'd move heaven and earth to keep me safe, who'd burn the world down before he let me go, who'd taken my fear and transformed it into something precious, something worth fighting for, something that felt remarkably like freedom. I was Emma Valentino now, no longer invisible, no longer afraid, no longer alone. I was his, completely and irrevocably, and God help anyone who tried to change that.